everybody. I am here with a good friend of mine, Jay Ponti, here to talk about his new book, Be the Revolution, which is also just like a great lifestyle advice, I think. I have so many questions. I don't even know where to start. So can you tell people who are not familiar with this book, one, what's it about, and two, where they can find it?
Sure. I think you probably will have a better time telling people where to find it eventually.
Strong Arm Press.
Strong on Press eventually. But yeah, essentially it is a firsthand account of my experiences from Occupy Wall Street, Bernie 2016, Bernie 2020, Standing Rock, the Poor People's Campaign, some divestment actions we did. And really, though, it is an attempt at a theory of change. It is our history. It is an autopsy on our movements. And really, like, it tries to answer questions like where do I start if I'm going to be organizing? You know, in the theory of change, it does center an inside-outside strategy. You know, I mean, it talks about the importance of having inside people, inside the electoral system. It's something during Occupy a lot of us discovered, where the Tea Party took over the Republican Party, and we got dismantled in terms of our tactical, sort of operations. So a lot of us came away from Occupy with that. And then leveraging inside power with outside disruption, direct action, things like that. And I think one of the really cool things that this book points out was that Bernie Sanders didn't just come out of the free market as a tactic. That he didn't come out of the free market because he appealed to unrealistic millennials. But it really shows how he was pushed to run by organizers, Progressive Democrats of America, Occupy organizers. There were Occupy organizers who saw the Clinton campaign as an extension of neoliberalism and really almost neoconservatism. And we knew what we were going to get under a Clinton administration, and really pushed Bernie to run, activated the entire Occupy network to really say, run, Bernie, run. We need you to run. And that was done as a conscious tactic. And I think that's a super important narrative. But it covers a lot of different stuff. It even covers some work we did mapping the QAnon network and showing how right-wing movements, we'll see leftist movements will innovate, as we did in Occupy. It was really an inflection point of new technology. But then we see how fascists then will co-opt those tactics and use them to build power.
Well, and that leads directly into the work you're doing right now. Are you at liberty to talk about that?
Sure, I suppose so.
So you have teamed up with some fancy Hollywood activists to say, okay, there's lots of grassroots organizing happening, and it's great, but we need to work together more because it's scary. We're living in scary times, and there are lots of people in LA that want to help, and you're the bridge between those two worlds.
One of them. That was one of the roles I played with the Sanders campaign. Just being in Hollywood. I lived in Hollywood. I went out there to play in bands and around 2004, and I had relationships because I was just in that world. And then after Occupy, that was when we really saw the importance of trying to build cultural power, and so it became a much more conscious tactic to connect cultural influencers with both with elected and grassroots campaigns. And when you're a poor organizer, it really, you don't have many resources, and being able to enlist a celebrity to show up is just an easy, free way to get people to give a shit and show up and get press to cover your action. So I, in the process of doing that work, I got to know a filmmaker named Adam McKay, who he really just is he's like he and probably Mark Ruffalo are two of my absolute favorite humans, because it's they never really left the working class in their minds. Even though they're members of the 1% and have all that privilege, they really use that privilege responsibly. And it was through a campaign Mark Ruffalo and Alex Eber asked me to join to do some direct actions against the City National Bank to bring light to a pipeline fight in Canada, where basically they were funding these banks are funding essentially these extractive fossil fuel projects and committing indigenous genocide. So through that, and it was actually through act.tv. This whole thing came about because, I'm not kidding, it happened because of act.tv. We were getting ready to set up this this press conference for Ruffalo and the Wet'suwet'en tribe. And in the process, Harry, the CEO founder of act.tv, said, hey, a bunch of people were trying to get in touch with Adam McKay. Do you know him? And I did. I knew him from Bernie World. And in that process, Adam came and joined us to shut down the City National Bank in downtown with a youth and indigenous-led coalition. And it was a good time shouting at bank executives. And after that, we got to talking, and Adam really has, like myself and others, are freaked out about the rise of fascism and the climate apocalypse. So he decided to create a new division of his production company, Hyperobject Industries, which you might know does films like Don't Look Up, a little show called Succession, Winning Time, The Lakers, a bunch of great documentaries. And he, wants to be able to essentially use the power of Hollywood to culture hack for our social movements. That's essentially what we're doing.
I think it's so inspiring. So you said something, I'm going to quote you on. You said this is like the most positive you felt in a while, and me too, because I think it's so easy to look around and feel overwhelmed with anxiety, cynicism, and it's like, no, there are people with power that want to help. Not enough, right? And there are people like you who are tracing those inroads. Okay, how can we build solidarity from the top and from the bottom? Because it's going to take everybody.
Yeah, agreed. It's a mixed bag. I am both the most optimistic I've ever been, just seeing these incredible youth-led movements, these incredible indigenous-led movements, seeing people come together, like breaking down the silos between our different issues. Seeing movements for Black liberation come together with climate justice and health justice, and really it's important because it is all part of the same big issue. And so I'm really encouraged by these things, and I'm also equally terrified every day because I read the science, and the science is fucking terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying. And I see great to see the Biden administration sort of responding with the IRA. Yeah, it's a win. It's definitely the most the left has ever won on grassroots issues. Great. And if we're being realistic, it's just painfully not enough to address what is coming down the pike. It's kind of like we win a bunch of water to put out the house fire, and Joe Manchin and fossil fuels win an equal amount of gasoline. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. It really is like Adam's movie, Don't Look Up. It's like that level of insanity.
It was one of my favorite movies, easily. And it was difficult to watch because one thing that they did really well, they didn't let so we interviewed David Sirota, and he was talking about how the goal was to not let the audience off the hook. Because you're waiting for that happy ending. You're waiting for it, and then they blew it. No, it doesn't happen. And the work you're doing is like, okay, we might have that ending. Let's do something else.
I mean, ultimately, to me, the point of the book is really like everybody's on the same team. Everybody helps everybody. And it is, I think that our world has changed a lot, and I think that our social movements sometimes are still operating out of ideas that are decades old, and we're not like the fascists. If you read the QAnon chapter, you can see how the fascists are on the cutting edge of technology. They used some of these principles to decentralize a psyop. QAnon was a psyop to build power and to game these fringe communities and turn them into political power. And they use technology really cleverly to do that, to create decentralized, distributed organizing efforts. And we tend to stay stuck in our own paradigms. And so, but the core principle is everyone's on the same team, everyone helps everybody, lift up the youth. But it's also that idea of inside-outside strategies where we need to focus on the outside tactics. We always talk about tactics, but also focus on the inner beingness. Like when it's being the revolution, it's not a passive thing. It's not just trite, it's not just passive, because if I don't do the inner work, I'm not going to transform the limiting beliefs that are going to show up in my organizing spaces, showing up in my results or lack of results. I'm going to bring that trauma, the cultural conditioning, the whatever it's internalized patriarchy, colonialism, white supremacy. I'm going to bring that into those organizing spaces, and then everyone, if you've ever been involved in any group of humans trying to organize, you know that it's just a colossal time suck, waste of time, destroys all solidarity, and prevents us from doing anything. And when we have infiltrators, it makes us very easy marks for us to find, for them to find those fracture points and to dismantle our organizing efforts.
Well, I love that. Yeah, everybody get this book, and because you're right, it is an inner and an outer struggle, and they go together. It almost feels wrong to make those two things separate, because as you say, if we have limiting beliefs in our organizing spaces, then the organizing we do might just mirror the things we're trying to fight. That's been like a big spiritual thing I've realized as I get older. It's like, if you haven't done that inner work, you might just be replicating a new form of the same old thing.
It's true. And I mean, to address that, we're doing a number of free capacity building training. So like Be the Revolution is a theory of change. And the training itself, we're actually going around the country, and my wife and I live in a camper van. We're driving around doing free trainings for frontline activists to try to basically, the training helps to uncover some of those limiting beliefs. It does have sort of modern organizing, tactical, strategic theories of change, important distinctions, but it also, really the training itself is really powerful to have local groups sort of feel more of a sense of solidarity. Because in my experience, it's usually a lot of the organizing is very transactional. And a lot of that is based on capacity. Like, we don't have the capacity we barely have the capacity to show up for ourselves. So these processes and exercises have been absolutely critical for me, being able to achieve the things that I achieved with no time and no money. And yet, like, we have been able to achieve a few things, which the book tells about. And some of the processes and exercises in the training were, for me, really pivotal. But the bigger thing is really like bringing together the organizers for racial justice, health justice, indigenous rights, unhoused justice, undocumented justice, and having us go through something where we come out feeling like family. Cornel West once said to me, I asked him, how do we build sustainable movements? How do we win? And he said, what he said to me, I'll never forget. He goes, Brother Jay, like, we need spiritual exemplars who are willing to fight and die for one another. Just like in the civil rights movement, we were willing to fight and die for one another. And if that is the baseline, if that's the high watermark, if that's what we need to achieve, in my opinion, like, it's going to take a lot of work to cultivate that. So anyways, that's why we're offering those free trainings.
That's very inspiring. I will quote him on that frequently. I love it. I couldn't agree more. Because, solidarity that's just an intellectual, political opinion is meaningless. We need real, live, emotional, communal solidarity. So, Jay, thank you so much for everything you're doing. Keep an eye on him. Where do you want people to follow you on Twitter? Where?
I don't really go on Twitter much because I think it's a cesspool.
Do not follow him on Twitter. Thank you.
I guess I just go on Twitter to troll fascists and neoliberals, basically. But the best thing is you could go to betherevolution.us. There's a free bonus chapter there that you can download, and that's a good way to stay in touch. Also, if you sign up, does Strong on Press have a sign up? So if you do that, if you go to Strong on Press, it's going to come out. It's very soon, I promise. We're working hard on it. Everyone at Strong Arm, and Jocelyn included, is really helping to shape the book. And there's been a lot of activists that have showed up to help shape the book. So I'm really excited about it.
Thank you so much, Jay. And again, this is the book.